Hello everybody, this is Dead Money with Dan Arfin. Today, the first ever honorary Dead Money guest is returning to the Dead Money studio. Veteran pro poker player and longtime friend Mike Zulker is joining us. Last time we had Mike was on the eve of the 2025 World Series of Poker. Mike and I discussed the current landscape of poker and what to expect for the upcoming World Series. Now, Mike had just played a tournament one day before that conversation and finished on the stone bubble. He was 1-all-in away from being the chip leader, but instead he busted out on the 1-yard line. However, this disappointing result would not set the tone for Mike's World Series to come, so I'm just going to give you a rundown of what followed. Mike cashed in 4 tournaments, first coming in 221st place in the $500 no-limit hold'em freeze-out event. He more than tripled his money, and to do that with only a 221st place finish, that must mean there should have been at least, 75,000 entrants to the event. His next cash was surely the bittersweet highlight of Mike's summer. More sweet than bitter, he came in second fucking place at the $10,000 Pot Limit Omaha main event, hitting it for about $930,000. That was certainly a step up from the $500 event, especially when you consider I was heckling him the entire time from his rail. Then he cashed in the $10,000 no-limit hold'em main event for the 5th time since his first go at it in 2011. This time he came in 512th place, once again more than tripling his money, but perhaps even more significant than that, Mike had the most thrilling and distinct honor of knocking out the Poker Brat, Phil Hellmuth, on national poker television, and did so in about as dramatic a fashion as one can do. Mike had opened to 6,000 with pocket queens. I think there was one call, and then Phil jammed all in about 100,000. And in watching Mike's face and body language as he decided on what to do, I didn't think he was ever going to fold, but he took a decent length time anyway, and choosing to spin the wheel since he was going to be risking a hefty portion of his stack in a spot where he knows, best case scenario, he's probably only about 57% to win. But after going with it, Mike was given the news he expected. Phil had ace-king off, but 2 of Phil's outs were already mucked, so he actually only had 4 outs instead of 6. However, 1 of Mike's queens was also mucked, so if Phil were to take the lead before the river, Mike's redraw equity would be cut in half. The flop was nothing, but on the turn, Phil spikes a king, and Mike knows now that all the camera's eyes are on him, looking to capture the reaction of the soon-to-be crippled tournament man. But he did a hilarious job, from my perspective, in keeping a stoic composure which spoke, "I am going to do everything I can to conceal just how tilted I truly am." But that tilt wouldn't last long because, how you doing, River? Say hello to the Case Queen. The perceived 2-outer but actual 1-outer Queen of Hearts sends Phil Hellmuth packing yet again from the World Series of Poker main event. Now, this hand, of course, went viral, and Mike was greeted by many randos the next day at the main event, well-deservedly high-fiving him from all directions for issuing Phil this devastating knockout. Now, a couple months prior to the start of the series, Phil said he would be boycotting the main event because it was too long. But when Mike was on the show here close to 3 months ago, he correctly predicted that Phil would still play the main event. So, Phil, maybe the next time you say you're not going to play, you shouldn't play, because if you do, that means you're going to have to go through Mike Zulker all over again, and everybody ought to know that that's going to be an uphill battle for you. Now, it's not that Mike is the only one who could have done this. There are plenty of players who would have gone with the queens there. But it wasn't them, it was Mike. And this also wouldn't be Mike's final TV appearance of the main event. His knockout hand also made it to the cameras. The action folded to the button who opened, and Mike 3-bet jammed from the small blind with ace-9 off, and look what I found. The big blind wakes up with aces. Mike almost backed into a straight, though. He had a real sweat for the river, but unfortunately, almost still doesn't count, as Mike's walk of elimination away from the 2025 main event was captured point blank. Oh well. Mike would cash one more time, though, in the World Series. He came in 101st place in the 6-handed $3,000 Pot Limit Omaha event, good for more than doubling his money. and he has now just returned from Scottsdale, where he came in 64th place in the $1,130 buy-in No Limit Hold'em Arizona State Championship. Now, it goes without saying, Mike, so I don't even know why I'm saying it, that our first conversation played an immeasurably instrumental role in the World Series you're coming off of. And even though you didn't get to capture the gold this year, I was very happy for you that you did get to run all the way to second in a main event tournament, and then a couple weeks later knock out one of the most famous and infamous, notorious figures to ever play poker in the main event of all main events. These are things that most poker players, including myself, could only ever dream of doing, and I know how bad you've been working for it and been wanting it for a long time. So, Mike, welcome back. And my goodness, what a well-deserved summer you had.
Well, that was quite an introduction to the return of Dead Money. Thank you, Dan. And yeah, it was quite a wild summer. Although the introduction was pretty stellar, you did leave off about 10 of my caches, but I guess you're not equipped with Hendon Mob right now.
I was just going off what the Hendon Mob said. How many additional caches did you have in the main event? I only saw the 4 from this year.
No. I had 5 main event caches, but over the summer I think I cashed in like 11 total tournaments.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, the Hendon Mob, well, they're not up to date then.
Yeah, so it's funny, ironically...
I knew this was going to happen, by the way. I had a feeling I was going to be wrong about the caches, and Mike, the first thing he's going to tell me is that, nope, I cashed way more than you gave me credit for.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, but obviously you brought up the one that mattered and the 2 that were interesting because of the Hellmuth hand, but... yeah, ironically, the person who beat me heads up in the PLO was a player by the name of Michael Wang, and like a week or so earlier, we were both really deep in a win. I think it was a 1600 event, and there was like 35 people left, and he was first in chips, and I was second in chips, actually, and then I played a really big pot with somebody else with ace-king versus ace-queen all in pre-flop, and he drilled a queen on the river, and basically crippled me down to like a big blind and a half, and I somehow spun that up without actually ever getting it in bad. I just kept getting dealt premiums when I had no chips, so I like tripled up with kings and then tripled up with ace-jack suited versus like ace-5 and ace-6, and then all of a sudden like I had like playable chips again, although I was short the whole time. So when we were down to like 2 tables, he was kind of like abusing the table because he was chip leading, and I was like 16 of 16, and 17 of 17, and so on. I ended up finishing in 14th place in that one, and he went on to win for like $525K. And then a week later, we find ourselves heads up in the 10K PLO, and what's also ironic about that is Mike was down to 2/3 of a big blind the night before. So in day 3, he had, I believe, 66,000 left or something, and the blinds were 100K. He had like 2/3 of a big blind. He thought he was out. Eric Seidel, legendary poker player, actually called him back to the table because Mike thought he was eliminated, and he came back and somehow spun that up to winning $1.4 million. But yeah, it was a wild ride. There was some pretty notable players at the final table. Alex Foxen. There's a guy by the name of Sean Raphael who's actually quite a legendary PLO player online. He used to play the high stakes on Stars and stuff. He's only like 33. Funny enough, Foxen and Raphael busted and immediately late regged the 100K PLO, and they both final tabled that. So it's like, those guys are just beasts. But Wang played really well. I felt like I did well with what I had. You know, came in 5 out of 7 and immediately lost a big pot, and was 7 out of 7 left in day 4. And then we got into the Thunderdome when we formed the final 5. I was 5 out of 5, and so I just kind of laddered by playing a lot of ICM spots. I rewatched the final table finally a couple of weeks ago, and I did notice a lot of mistakes in my opinion, but there's always going to be things you want to nitpick. I got a lot of feedback from some pretty good players that I played well. I thought I played good tournament poker. I wouldn't say I played really great PLO poker, so to speak. Some of the decisions I made, a lot of them were ICM based and just based on who was at my table and the positions everybody was at. But yeah, you can't really be unhappy with it. The final hand was kind of brutal, but, you know, it is what it is.
Well, yeah, you hear the saying, all you need to win is a chip and a chair. I guess they need to modify that to all you need is 2/3 of a chip and a chair. And it's mind blowing to me that Michael Wang did not wait for a confirmation from the dealer, like, you are out. Like, and he is. I'm not saying it was a crazy assumption. He had less than one big blind left, but it's just crazy that he thought he was out. In his mind, oh, I lost the tournament. I'm going to go move on with my day. No, wait, come back. Next thing you know, he's winning the fucking bracelet.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't at the table when he busted, or when he perceivably busted, obviously. But I just heard that he was, like, starting to walk away or, like, getting up from his chair. So I don't know how far away he got. But, yeah, exactly. I mean, you see that a lot. I mean, I sent a player on day 2 of this tournament. I got it in. PLO, the equities run very close. It's not like No Limit Hold'em where you can get it in as a 4 and 5 to 1 favorite as often. You're usually going to have like 30 to 40% equity when you get it in PLO. That's kind of the beautiful part of the game and also the psychotic part of the game, so to speak. So I somehow got it in as like a 96% favorite on day 2, all in on the flop. And what's funny is I actually almost folded my hand. I ended up peeling pre-flop, and this guy had just been playing like a mega nit. And there was 2 hands left in the night, something like that. Like it was like deal 5 more hands type of thing. And I tanked when he shoved flop. And all I had was top pair, top kicker, which in PLO is not a lot. I had like ace, king, queen, 10, something like that on ace, deuce, 3 with 2 clubs, and I had no clubs, something along those lines. And I actually tanked the all-in because I had nothing to go with it, and I thought at best I'm probably, chopping versus clubs or something like that. So I tanked and finally put it in, and the guy had like king, queen, 10, 7. I just had him dead, and I couldn't believe it. And on the turn, before the turn came out, he started walking away because, he was dead. He turned a pair, but I had most of his 2 pairs covered, and he somehow found his offsuit card and rivered 2 pair against me. And he was already in, like out of the tournament area. Like, 2 people had to go run him down to bring him back. Like, he was gone. Like, he was already heading to the payout. Like, it was kind of painful because all the pots matter at that point. It was like a 565K chip pot, which left me with about 1.1. Whereas I think I would have had like over 2, like 2.2 or something, which would have been above average. So I ended up bagging, I don't remember if it was average or what, but it was significant based on my stack. And yeah, the guy just like left. And that, to be fair, in his case, like he was like as dead as he can really be in PLO without being actually dead. But yeah, that's kind of the beauty of the game. There's always backdoors and kind of crazy shit that can happen.
Poker players are a difficult breed of people to understand. Even I can't understand them. And what I really can't understand now is, said it already, you guys are sitting there in these fucking tournaments 12, 13 hours a day. You're knocking yourselves dead God knows how many weeks a year studying ICM, studying this, studying that. You can't wait 10 more fucking seconds to make sure that you're out of the goddamn event. Now you gotta rush out of here. What, you gotta go buy into another one? That's the only plausible, acceptable explanation you can give to me for that.
It's... Yeah, you're not wrong. I guess for myself, I usually do confirm that I'm eliminated before I walk away, just because I know that there's always weird shit that happens, and even if you're left with one big blind, obviously I've seen people spin it up. I did so in the win event and laddered 20 more spots. So what I would say is, like, when you're kind of that deep, you're emotionally invested, and when a tournament ends and you're deep in one, it's kind of like everything hits you at once. All the emotions finally, like, hit you. Like, some of it's relief that you busted, some of it's frustration, some of it's just fatigue, and you just want to get the fuck out of there. So, like,
yeah,
it's almost like you just want to teleport away, and so you're just like, it's almost like you want to stoically throw the backpack on or throw the whatever you have on and then just like walk away, say good game, like it didn't bother you. But the reality is like you want to just punch the shit out of somebody or like cry or like kick someone, and like you can't do any of that, or at least not yet. They might change the rules, I guess, but so yeah, you just kind of want to get the fuck out of there. So you just kind of I think that's our way of like, okay, we're out. And then there's also these like weird superstitious things where people will be like, oh, if I put the backpack on and stand up, then I have more of a chance to suck out. And, we know when it happens.
Right, that magically changes the cards in the deck.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it changes anything, but in our delusional minds, because when it does happen, we remember it, I think that players will do so to kind of like create some kind of psychological edge. It's almost like, willing it into existence, so to speak. I mean, I've been culpable of that too, and it's funny because it definitely has happened, but it's also happened plenty of times where I put my bag on and then I just like walk away busted like an idiot. So
yeah, I think doing anything superstitious is a neurotic, senseless waste of energy. You only have so much energy to allocate each day, and I think being superstitious is a total misdirection of it. All that said, I understand why people do it. There's something about it. It just makes you a little more comfortable.
Yeah, it's like prepaying a bet. It's like little weird things. The only one that I actually stand by, and I know it's stupid, and like I don't really believe it, but I kind of believe it, is I really hate having $50 bills. Like
I've heard those are bad luck.
Like they're bad luck. Technically in a casino, they're not supposed to have the cage. If you watch at a cashier cage, if they ever make change for you, like there's obvious spots where they should just give you a 50. It makes sense. They don't. They give you 2 20s and a 10.
I know. I very rarely get a 50.
Yeah, I mean, if the cashier does it, they're probably new because it's considered very bad luck in gambling. And it's just funny to me because, when I've played like smaller stakes poker games over the years, like 2-5 or 5-10, and I see someone buy in 2,000, 3,000, and 50s, that player has never fucking won ever. I've never watched them. And I swear, the people that walk around with $50 bills, they just seem like they got a black cloud over them. And I don't know, I've never watched someone just like buy in a load of 50s and win. Usually they're either drug dealers or retards.
What was it about Ulysses S. Grant that just carries over so poorly into the world of gambling? Because I read somewhere that, gamblers don't want to be paid in 50s. And I'll admit that because of this folklore, I don't even know what it is, when I do occasionally get a 50, I immediately spend it. And I'll admit, because I've read this, that gamblers don't want to be paid in 50s, fine. I will not be paid in 50s either because there's just no point in reverse free rolling yourself. Because if I get paid 50s and then I get smacked the next few weeks, am I going to sit here and scream my head off? It has nothing to do with the $50 bills. Yes, I am going to do that. Yeah. But if I don't take the $50 bills, then there's no chance I have to scream my head off about it. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just a reverse free roll, like you said. It's like, even if it's stupid and wrong, it just feels like, all right, well, if I have a 50 in my pocket and I win, it's because I'm sick. And if I have a 50 in my pocket and I lose, it's like, no wonder I fucking lost. I had a stupid Ulysses S. Grant in my pocket.
The 50s are so fucking sexy, though. They're like kind of pink and they're badass, and you never see Grant's face because you never see a $50 bill. I feel like you see $2 bills more often than you see $50 bills, and they're kind of badass. It's like $50 is a lot of money in one piece of paper, How did this fucking shit start? One day somebody said, I don't want to be paid in $50 bills. Or like, and they got paid in 50s and then they lost, and then they just started a thing. They're like, yo, $50 is bad luck. And then maybe one other person also went on a bad run right after getting paid in 50s. And just like that, it catches on to the whole world, and now nobody wants to fuck with it.
Yeah, I would love to know the origin story. I have been curious. Maybe I should ask Grok or ChatGPT what the origin is of $50 bills being poor luck, because I don't really understand or know why. But it is the one superstition, I guess, in gambling that I am somewhat like, okay, I don't want to have 50s on me. And you're right, they do look kind of sexy, because I think it's like nobody wants them, at least in the gambling world. They always look new and kind of unused.
Yes.
The hundreds look kind of like dirty and played out, but the 50s look kind of crisp, and, they look like the biggest denomination tournament chips. Like in tournaments, the $1 million plaques and stuff only get used at the final table or something, so they're cleaner and look good, and then you look at the dirty little, like, $100 chips that everyone touches as they pick their nose and pick their ass and dirty shit. They look all yuck and fucking gross. So yeah, I don't know where the origin started, but that's probably the one that I somewhat stand by. And it's kind of just like, it's like a reverse free roll. It's kind of like, it's like praying. What do you have to lose? Like,
yeah, I think for me it's something to have a sense of humor about. It's like, all right, fine. Yeah. Gamblers don't want 50s, fine. I'll go with your fucking tradition of you don't get paid in 50s. I'm not going to take a stand against this. I don't need to.
It makes a great story for civilians, too. And when I say a civilian, I mean like a non-DJ, non-gambler.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be out to dinner or out
Tourist.
at a bar, and a random friend of mine, when I was in Arizona, like I had a friend who wanted to cover the bar tab, and I'm like, no, I got it. And he like pulls a 50 out. I was like, I sure as shit am getting it now. There's no fucking way I'm letting you do that. You're trying to like take a woman home tonight? No fucking shot. You got a chance in hell taking a woman home with a $50 bill in your pocket. Just dumb shit like that. And he's like, what do you mean? And I have to like tell him. But then I probably should learn the origin because they always ask, well, why is it unlucky? And I'm like, it just is, all right? Just trust me.
Because I said so.
Right?
Because someone said so, and no one has proven it's wrong, so we're just doing it.
I'm the pro gambler. This is gospel, all right? You go be an accountant and tell me, what tax form to fill out. I'll tell you what bills you should use when you pay for a bar tab.
It's really no different than any of the other completely random rules come up with by religions. This is just a religious rule of gamblers don't get paid in 50s.
Just is what it is,
You said something earlier that made me think of what happened in the 2012 main event where I cashed. I went on day 4. It was my first main event. And when I got knocked out, of course I was sad. But yeah, there actually was this moment of relief too. But it's not like a happy relief. I think it's just you're released from the burden of the stress of what you're doing. You're no longer under the pressure anymore, and it's a pressure you're more than thrilled to be under. That said, it is still stress and pressure, and when it is taken off of you, you do feel some sort of lift off that doesn't quite feel bad.
Right.
But this is not what you had in mind. This is not a happy feeling, even though it is kind of a relief in a way.
Sure, you don't want to bust the tournament, but there is like, when you're playing a poker tournament, especially if you're playing deep in a poker tournament, there's a level of like concentration and focus that you have in you. It's just like, it's kind of what makes tournaments like more fun at times for me because I truly am a cash game player at heart, but the reason I go to tournaments is it really drives out that competitive edge for me, and you don't get that same feeling in cash games. Like, sure, if you play a really high stakes cash game where the stakes are bigger than you normally play, you can get that adrenaline and, euphoria rush. You can get that dopamine hit that you're looking for. But when you play a tournament, day one sucks. I mean, for me, I don't enjoy day ones. I really don't enjoy this process like a lot of people. Like, I know that tons of people out there like that, and I get it. You gotta, crawl before you walk and walk before you run. But there's nothing like getting deep in a tournament. Like, it's really fun to play for a lot of money, and it's really fun to play for first, like to have a shot at winning something. And when you can see the field, that level of focus and intensity just rises, and that's really what I enjoy about it. And when you bust, even though you're not happy, it's like you're released, like you said, like the burden is gone. So it's not a good feeling, but it's like, okay, I don't have to maintain this level of like intensity anymore. You're kind of like, okay, it's like a surgeon, right? When you go under the knife, the surgeon has to maintain a level of focus so he doesn't kill you, so he can help you. But then the second the surgery's over, I'm sure he like has a release of just relaxation, like, okay, it's done. Like, the task is complete, whether for better or for worse. And that's the best way I can describe it. It's not necessarily a good feeling, but in a way there is like a little bit of a feeling of relief that you're done, and then you just kind of feel the sadness, and then you try to figure out what's next. Oftentimes you see tournament players kind of wandering on their phones in the hallways of the World Series of Poker. They're not really sure what to do. I mean, during the summer there's like 47 different venues, there's all these different venues and all these different tournaments, and there's so many events, and if you play multiple games especially, or if you're able to play multiple stakes, like I played that $500 event, and then a few days later was playing a 10K, like I'm willing to play. $500 is usually the smallest. I max late reg that event, and I happened to just be there to pick up money from someone, and I was like, alright, fuck it, I'll jump in this, and then I got semi-deep in it. But yeah, when you don't know what to do next, you see people wandering the hallways, almost confused and dazed. They just got knocked out. They're like a boxer who just got punched in the face, and they're not really sure what's next. Do I go to the locker room? Do I continue the fight? They don't know what to do, so they just kind of wander aimlessly in the hallway looking at their phones.
Yeah, there's so much emotion involved, and you get so much drained from you from a tournament. And that's before you even get into the fact that you've been there for hours and hours and hours, for days. Yeah. I mean, before you even get into that, there's all this emotion built into these tournaments because you're looking to catch such a huge high, like you mentioned earlier, in exchange to try and catch that high, the risk you're taking is you're going to be in a lot of pain that's kind of hard to comprehend at first. You don't even know how to channel it. You don't really know what to do with it. So, like you say, you just sort of end up wandering through the hallways on your phone, because what creates an easier distraction in today's world than your fucking phone?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them are texting their bust-out hands to their backers or their friends or their investors. They're looking at the schedule. I mean, I've been...
Just reeling, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm like, God, do I really want to... I mean, it's really hard to go from, like, a final table or a final 2 tables to jump into, like, level 2 of a tournament, you know, or, like, late reg level 5 of a tournament. I mean, you go from playing, like, 500K, 1 million blinds to, like, okay, we're at 200, 300, you know, with a 30K stack, and you got to start all over again. And some people thrive on that, man. I mean, these true, like Michael Wang, the guy who won the Win event that I was in, I got 14th in, and the guy who beat me heads up in the PLO. Like, the next day, I'm sure he was just grinding, like, the next event. Like, he just, you know, he's a true grinder. Like, he'll play everything, and I don't think it phases him. You know, I wouldn't be shocked if, you know, he went home and played some online event that night. I don't think he did, but it wouldn't shock me at all. And yeah, I mean, it was a fun experience. That was my second official WSOP final table. My third unofficial. I got 10th in one, and I got 9th in one. But it had been a lot of years since I got the 9th place, so it was fun to have the rail I had. I mean, obviously living in Vegas, I have a lot of local supporters, and even a lot of Wang's rail I'm kind of friendly with. Like, I know some of the people on his rail, so they were kind of rooting for us to get heads up. Obviously, they were rooting for Mike to win, and I don't blame them because that's who they were there to support, but they were still kind of rooting for me, so it was cool. And obviously, it's a really nice payday, but I won't lie, when you get that close, it's this weird feeling, because anyone that doesn't know what it's like to get second or third or something, it's like, when I busted out, all everyone could think is, bro, you just cashed for almost $1 million. You got second in the $10,000 PLO championship. And honestly, part of me wanted to, like, cry. Part of me wanted to put my hand through a wall. Like, It's
not about money. It's not all about money. You can't play for the money. You got to play for the game, and that's why you feel that way.
Yeah, it's both. You know, like, obviously, the next day or two, the money feels really good. And I'm not going to lie, it's very important. I mean, but when you're sitting there 3 feet from a bracelet, staring you in the face, and, you know, the guy had me 3-2 in chips going into the last hand, and for those of you who don't know, the last hand is, you know, definitely what would be seen as a major cooler. I turned the third nuts, and he had the second nuts, and he's a very good player, so he's capable of value betting all in on the river with slightly worse, and he's also capable of some bluffs. But I kind of knew he had it. If you look on the stream, if anyone who saw, I kind of make a smirk, and I'm just kind of coming to terms with that I'm going to get second place. Like, in my heart of hearts, just 20 years around live poker, and you just know. But you can't fold. You know?
But if you know, but then you didn't know, because if you did know, then you would have folded.
Well, again,
you couldn't have actually known and still called it off.
Of course, like, if you turned his hand over, happily I would fold. But, like,
you knew, but you didn't. But you did,
those,
but
like,
you didn't.
I'm 85 to 90% sure that he has me beat with the hand he had, but he's good enough to value bet slightly worse, and he's also good enough to bluff, and it's heads up, and just with what I had left with, you know, my stack, it's just one of those spots. Like, there's some spots you just, you know, look, that's why Phil Hellmuth is supposedly, like, the white magic master, right? Like, maybe Phil would have folded my hand and lived to fight another hand, and, you know, so on. But it was tough, because, like, you know, when the hand happened, until he shoved the river and I got that gutty feeling, I was like, wow, I'm going to be a 4-1 favorite heads up. And, I mean, I had a pretty good heads up record to that. I don't play a lot of tournaments relative to some of these guys, but I think I was like 4-1 going into that. And I've also played a lot of heads up live cash matches against people in my day. And, you know, I'm just very fortunate that I've come out ahead on almost all of those. So I'm not used to losing heads up. So,
yeah, I asked you a question on one of your breaks. I don't know how many players I have, maybe like 5 or 6. And you took me more seriously than I thought you were going to take me. I said it in front of everybody. I was like, Mike, are you even good at PLO? Because it's like, I know you've been diligent for a long time with this game too, but Hold'em's been your bread and butter for years. And I know you haven't played a ton of live MTTs of PLO, especially the big ones, and go figure that this is the one you're like coming this close to winning a bracelet, your biggest payday, all the above. I was like, go figure it happens at this game. Are you even good at this game? Because it's like, how many times do we look up when we see the final table list? So like, oh, he's a railroad engineer for the last 20 years. He's been playing poker once a week in the basement, and now he's at the final table. I mean, these are the fucking people who make final tables. So like, all right, maybe this is the secret. Don't be that good at the game, and then you get to the final table.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only one who's asked me. I mean, after my finish or even during the run, I had a ton of people ask me, I didn't even know you played PLO, because I don't play a lot of PLO tournaments, to be fair. You know, I did end up playing a few days later or a week later, whatever it was, after the main event. I ended up playing a $3,000 six-max PLO event where I got 100th or something. And it's funny, I actually felt like I was going to win that one for some reason. Maybe just delusion from coming off the 10K, but that event was actually softer, and it was six-max, where I feel a little more comfortable because you get to play a lot more hands in six-max. And also, I max late reg that one, and it's funny because I never had any chips ever. Like, on the bubble, I was, like, last out of, like, the entire amount, but I just kept battling and, like, managing to get in, and I wasn't even, like, getting it in and just, like, winning all-ins. It was more like I just, like, survived, and I think I, like, kind of realized, like, PLO tournaments are kind of fun because you can pick spots and just, of course, you're going to have to eventually win it all-in, just like any tournament, but you can survive off small chips in PLO, and you can also build really fast. So I don't play a lot of PLO tournaments. I think I've played 5 live PLO events in my career, and I think I've cashed 4 of them now. And I know one I bubbled. It was like a WSOP 1K, and I bubbled like a few years ago, and it was pretty brutal fashion. I finished like 3 away. So I have had a good track record, but of course that's just variance. But I do play PLO. I play a good amount of PLO cash. I was very fortunate to get coached years ago by a very good PLO player who is now retired from poker and moved on to other industries. But at the time, he was one of the top cash game PLO players in Vegas, and I was very lucky to get his tutelage. And I would say that I'm definitely much better at No Limit Hold'em, but a lot of players are good at No Limit Hold'em, and I think a lot of players are pretty bad at PLO. And so usually, like, I play a private cash game at Aria a few days a week. That's generally where I play and what I play on non-tournament time. And we play a little bit of PLO, but there are some nights when a player wants to play exclusively PLO, and I'm kind of jazzed up for it. Like, because it's also a secret. Like, no one even knew, even my friends, like you. Like, are you even good at PLO? Do you play PLO? I mean, a lot of people didn't have any idea I do. And the truth is I have not put as much time into PLO as I have No Limit Hold'em, but I do think my edge in PLO generally is higher than it is at No Limit Hold'em due to the field. Now, I'm not saying in the 10K that was the case. Clearly, I ran incredible. You know, it's funny, I was all in my very first hand dealt in. I late regged the 10K. I think I got in like 3-4 hours after the tournament started, and literally the first hand I got dealt in. By the way, I had like Stephen Chidwick at my very first table, who's just one of the GOATs. The guy I doubled through is like a really, really good Australian cash game PLO player, but he's not really good in tournaments, meaning like he doesn't fully understand tournament dynamics, at least in my opinion. But I know he plays like the highest stakes of PLO cash games, like 501K PLO, like big PLO, bigger than I've ever played. So very first hand, I opened Queen Jack 10, 9 double suited, which is a very good rundown hand. And I think I'm like the hijack, and I know nobody really wants to hear hand histories, but since it was the...
I love hand histories.
I have seen that your podcast does seem to like them, so I'll give you a PLO one. So I have Queen Jack 10, 9 double suited, which means I have, 2 different suits I can make flushes on, for those of you not familiar with PLO, and they call it a rundown because it's 4 consecutive cards. It's a pretty good hand. I open hijack.
Yeah, I never heard that term. Thank you for teaching me that. See, this is why we do hand histories.
Yeah, and then the button, who is the high-stakes cash game Australian guy, 3-bets me. I end up calling. I have a pretty good hand to call with. Obviously, most people, when they're 3-betting in PLO, are going to have aces and some kings. It's not like No Limit Hold'em, where there's a lot more polar ranges and just linear ranges of like, okay, we can 3-bet the king jack suited in this spot. Like PLO generally, you don't see as much 3-betting. You see a lot of calling. You even see a lot of limping, and it's even correct to limp a lot in PLO. In PLO, limping is definitely pimping. And
wow, free lessons, people.
And in this hand, he ends up 3-betting. I call. It comes queen jack 3, I believe. And so I flop top 2 with an open ender and have a backdoor flush draw. There's a front door flush draw that's not mine. And I just check pot it, like basically committing myself.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a slam dunk hand, right? I have top 2 with an open ender. But again, these equities can run very close.
Yes.
He has like 2 aces with a flush draw and a gutter. Like we're...
Not great.
Yeah, well, I'm not...
But what are you going to do? You got a pretty big hand to go with.
And it's just funny because he ends up just getting it in with me. And, you know, I have him... he has kings with a gutter, a better guttered straight, and I think that's all he had. He didn't have the front door. He had a blocker to the front door spades or whatever it was. But, you know, I held, and it's like I could have easily been out the first hand. I mean, I think I was like 60% or something like that. And I could have easily busted hand number 1. And instead, you know, I'm just, you know, go on to get second out of like 900 players. So it's like, it's a freeze out too. So you can't rebuy in this tournament, which is actually why it's such a special tournament. You know, I've wanted to play this event for a lot of years, and I almost didn't play again. You know, I had a friend who happened to be in Vegas, but he lives out of the country, used to be a Vegas grinder, and kind of went on to bigger and better things, as all of my former friends seem to, but I'm still in the loop.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, so he kind of talked me into it a little bit. You know, he's like, you're definitely a favorite in the field. You know, there's plenty of people just like dead money in this thing. No pun intended to the pod, a little allude.
That's what this show is for.
And I just kind of talked myself into it, and, you know, I sold a little bit of action for it that I normally wouldn't sell. I ended up selling more than I probably like wanted to last second. Like when I was buying in 5 minutes before, I had a much larger chunk of myself than I ended up with as I regged, because 3 people got back to me like last second. I was like, it's a 10K. I'm probably just saving an extra $1,500. Like, and you know, it ended up costing me a lot of money and making them some. But it's the butterfly effect, and it doesn't work out the same way. So obviously, I can't be ungrateful for the result anytime you get second in an event like that. And it was a really fun tournament. Like, I played with a lot of incredible players, and I learned a lot. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, like, on the final table, but I also watched a lot of other people make tons of mistakes, too. So it's kind of interesting rewatching that final table, like, how many errors were actually made on all of our parts. But I guess you could say that about, like, every final table.
Have you been up at night, any of those nights, thinking about the knockout hand, and is there any regret? Do you wish you had folded that hand, or are you comfortable with the fact that you can call it off there and just live and die with what he turns over?
I certainly don't regret calling the river. The only thing that I thought a lot about is I ended up limp calling in this pot because I had a limp, like a heavily limp strategy. My hand could go either way. I could have limp potted it, which essentially is committing myself to get in because I wasn't very deep when this started. And I don't think he folds. He had queen jack 8 with a suit, which is actually pretty strong heads up. So if I limp pot, I don't know if he just gets it in. He might just peel, but I don't think he's like raise folding. So probably the same result, but I did definitely second guess, like, was that the correct play? And more so just because I want to make the right play. The result does matter, but in the end, like, you know, we try to just make the best play possible. I don't think anybody, once the hand goes to the flop, can do anything different. You know, it comes jack 10-10. I have ace 10-10 in my hand. I think I had ace king, or not ace 10-10, sorry. I had ace king 10-5, I believe.
No suits.
I did. I had an ace or a king high suit, I believe.
You did have a suit. Okay.
Yeah, I had his spades covered. I actually turned, not that it mattered, I turned tens full of aces, but I also turned the nut flush draw. And part of my reasoning why I limp called is I thought with an ace or a king high suit I could overflush him sometimes, which ironically I could have. He had queen high spades, if I recall. So there is a world where like I just overflush him, but I think it plays out the same. I think if I limp pot it, he just calls or maybe even just puts it in pre with me. I mean, at that point, we're not super, super deep. He had me 3-2 going in. I think he had 30 million versus my 20 million. But that's the only thing I really contemplated. I don't think there's anything I can do. I flop trip 10's best kicker with a Broadway draw. I turn 10's full of aces. I'm blocking aces. I basically lose to aces and Jack-Jack. And yeah, he had Jack-Jack. He had Queen Jack-Jack 8. So I don't regret it. Again, on the river when he did shove, it just felt in my heart like I was calling it off bad. But again, it's one of those plays where it wouldn't have shocked me if he turned over Jack-10 or was bluffing with an ace in his hand because he's capable. Mike's a very, very strong player and pretty well studied in tournaments, and he's even better at PLO than I thought he was. He's another guy I didn't know he really played a lot of PLO. I mean, you see players come out of the woodwork sometimes, and, the thing is there's so many tournaments that it might not make sense to play a PLO tournament if you're a no-limit specialist, so to speak. So, that's a good reason I don't play a lot of them, but there's definitely arguments for why they're valuable, and during the summer, that's a valuable one because obviously you can win $1.4 million and it's a freeze out, so it's a lot of fun. People can't rebuy, and you don't have to kill the Chidwicks of the world multiple times like you do in other events. So, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely play the event again next year. I might dabble and play the 25K PLO. Some friends actually hit me up after saying, why don't you jump in the 100K PLO? And I was like, LOL, yeah, ha ha ha. And they're like, no, I'm serious. I'll take a piece. And I guess it wasn't that unreasonable because, again, while the level of play does go up, I mean, PLO, the equities run close, and if you kind of have a good idea of tournaments and know what you're doing, Sean D went on to win that one, and he's a very good tournament player and a very good PLO player. There's just a lot of players who are good at one or the other. They're good at PLO but not tournaments, or they're good at tournaments but not PLO. So it's really hard to find someone who's good at both. Mike was good at both, and he was a worthy winner. I still obviously will have nightmares of not being able to close. It's I've been in the game a while, and while I'm not a big-time tournament player, it's anytime you get that close, it does make you it makes you want to play again, get yourself in that situation again, not just for the big money. Of course, the money matters. 930K is a lot of money, but winning a bracelet is just, when I first got into poker, that was what I wanted more than anything. That was one of the dreams, and that dream is dissipated as the bracelets become more and more watered down, and as I become more and more of a cash game player. And honestly, I'm more and more 1 foot out the door of poker, to be honest. So
the last time you were here, you said that you're playing the tournaments for money. Obviously, everybody is, but you said you're more in it for the prestige and the glamour and the glory of it, and that's actually a good thing because tournaments, with the rake and everything, they're not a great investment. And I think when tournaments were first created, I don't think this is what people had in mind when they first came up with the idea of playing to elimination, playing a tournament. Nobody ever expected that tens of thousands of people would be showing up to one single event.
No. I think initially the tournaments were created to kind of create a little bit of a reason for people to get together to gamble. I think the World Series of Poker was supposed to be something almost like a convention of gamblers, and everyone kind of gathers in the same area really to create better cash games. That's why people used to come to the series. I mean, there was 100 WSOP events this year. 100 events.
Wow.
And there's also tons of events at other venues. I mean, I cashed events at Aria, I cashed events at Wynn, I cashed events at Venetian, I also cashed them online. I mean, there's events all over. I mean, and if you really want to go down the totem pole, MGM, Orleans, Golden Nugget had a series. I mean, everywhere has a poker series. You could be a small-time grinder looking for $200-$300 buy-ins, or you could be playing the $250K at the WSOP. I mean, there's something for everyone now, and so with all the players and the money in tournaments, there is value there. There's EV, right? You talk about these little specks of EV that are hanging around in the air, and you're just plucking them out, and that's kind of what I think happens in these tournaments. But you don't get to realize that EV as often as you do in cash games. I mean, it took me 15 years of playing, 16 years of playing professional poker just to get not even 7-figure score, but close, and I'm not saying that, like, I deserved more before that. I mean, I delusionally probably have thought I've not ran the best in certain big situations, but there's, tons of people that feel that way. There's tons of great players that just can't win the flips or win the high EV situations. So they are high EV spots that you don't always get to realize, unlike cash games where you generally do get to realize a ton of your EV, and you get to do that by putting volume in. I mean, in these tournaments, live tournaments, we talked about it last time, I think you need like a 5,000 game sample. I mean, I was stuck before that event over the last 7 years in tournaments. I think I was down a couple 100,000 overall. Now, I had some winning years, in between, but net from like 2017 going into this summer, I think I was minus like 250 overall. Now, that's not necessarily me alone. That's like selling action and stuff, everything. But if you think about it, over 7 years, it's not even that crazy, right? I mean,
no.
It's, you're losing like, 30, 40K a year in tournaments. I mean, if your average buy-in is 1,600 and you put in 30 bullets a year, it's not even that crazy, So obviously, I was up before that, fortunately. It's funny because I always used to do better in tournaments before I played a lot of them. But obviously, this summer was great. I mean, I had like 11 caches, like I said. This was the big one. And then, obviously, you alluded to the main event. I went semi-deep in that. And I was fortunate enough to have some pieces of people as well that did well.
So you identify more with being a cash game player now. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought back in the day, like around the time I first met you, that you thought of yourself, you had the identity more of as a tournament player. That's what drove you more.
No, I never did. I never thought of myself as a tournament player, actually. I definitely wanted to play more tournaments. I felt like I'm very competitive. I came from kind of a sports background, and I've always been into sports. I've always been very competitive in everything I do. And like I said before, you don't really get to feel that competition in day-to-day cash games, but I would say I've always considered myself a cash game guy. I mean, I've never really put in a massive tournament schedule in a year. I've had 3 WSOPs now, maybe 4, where I've put in a full schedule where all summer I just played tournaments this year. I played 1 cash game session at my cash game that I play at. In fact, day 2 of the PLO, the guy who runs my game, one of the guys texted me and basically was like, "You're a real piece of shit for not playing our cash game all summer." And I'm like, "Well, I'm on day 2 of the 10K PLO." And then...
Sorry, I'm busy.
Yeah, a couple days later, it worked out. But yeah, I would say I'm primarily a cash game guy and always have been. But I always feel like the tournament scene looks cooler because it's more quantifiable, but it's also kind of a facade because everything on Hendon Mob is earnings and not buy-ins. And
oh no, that doesn't tell you hardly much of anything. It doesn't tell you what pieces you sold. It just tells you your gross winnings, the times you cashed and what you made.
Exactly, and it's just kind of, they can't tell the truth, right? Because if everyone knew that, 75 of the top 100 tournament players of all time are probably stuck, or had 1% of themselves. They have all these high rollers now where a ton of these guys have such small amounts. And I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but, that's the funny thing. I was adding it up with a friend of mine recently, and, we were talking about Jesse Lomas, and Jesse's just on this insane heater in the last few years. And since then, he's even gone on a bigger heater. I think he won another tournament in Barcelona last week. He's a guy... You look at his heater, but then when you factor in, how much he probably had and how many buy-ins and all the expenses and the time away from his kids, because he's a dad too, and then you think about just a 5'10" no-limit grinder that would play 2,000 hours a year, live in Vegas, never have to travel, live a healthier lifestyle, which, tournaments are rough. You're in the casino all day, you're sitting all day, you often don't see sunlight, you're busting and going right in. The mental strength that you have to have when you're playing these things is off the charts. Some of these guys just go, like we talked about, one to the next, they bust out. Foxen busted 7th and went immediately and regged the 100K PLO in day 2. Sean busted 4th and then did the same, and it just doesn't phase guys. I'm not built that way. I have a strong mental game where I can play these things for, I set, a time frame. I'm going to play the summer, and I kind of made the conscious choice that I'm going to play tournaments all summer. And I didn't think I'd end up playing as many as I did, but, that's the other thing. When you're having success, you obviously want to play more. And also, if you're going deep, you're playing more often. So I ended up only playing cash actually once this entire summer. I just came back from a weekend where I went and played a cash, like a private cash game out of town for a few days. And that was really the first cash I played in 3 months. And I felt quite rusty, to be honest, because it's different. I mean, it's just a different world.
Yeah, so when players are coming close to the money or coming close to a final table even, let's just say coming close to the money, they bust out. This is just like some actor going for some parts, gets the call back, comes down to him and one other guy. He doesn't get the part. He just goes to another audition. Just like another tournament player goes to another tournament. There's nothing to talk about. You're not going to have this whole big dramatic parade. I mean, maybe you will for an hour or two, but then after that, you move on to the next thing. That's it. It's just going for the next long shot.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, that's for sure true. I mean, when you get like 55th in something and it's like 5 p.m., you're probably just going to bust and see what you can go max late reg or see what you can get into if you're
Fuck that. Jesus.
Now, in my case, when I got second place, it was like 9 o'clock at night. I had a huge rail. Obviously, I've been playing 4 days straight of the same tournament with like high intensity. So we didn't do that. I took the rail out and we grabbed dinner at a nearby spot. I mean, I really didn't even go out for a big celebration. Like the main event started the next day. I took a day off to see my son. And honestly, when I busted, that's all I really wanted is I just wanted to be around him. Like that was all I really cared about. I was really appreciative of all the people that came out. It was really nice to have people from the past that I hadn't seen in years.
Oh yeah, thanks for the dinner.
Did you go?
Of course I went. I wouldn't miss it. I was there all fucking day. You think I'm missing the dinner?
Well, some people did actually. Some people just went home. And
that's a fish move.
But yeah, I mean, I just took the rail out for like dinner and drinks after, and it was fun. It was cool to celebrate with everyone, but. Yeah, it wasn't like this big, like, all right, let's throw a blowout party, let's go to... And it's funny, because I always figured, like, if I had a 7-figure close to it score, that's how it would be. But I was exhausted, man. I actually just wanted to go to sleep. But
yeah,
but
I don't blame you.
I was very grateful for everyone coming out and felt like, we got to do something. So we went to the nearest place that was open that could take 25 people or 30 people. And, like I said, a good 25 or 30 people left, so...
That's the kind of pain in the ass tournaments are. Even by the time you do run deep in these things, you get a lot of people out there, and once it's over, now it's another pain in the ass to figure out where you can take everybody. Because this is just the life of playing tournament poker, people. It's a pain in the ass from start to finish, even before you start until after you finish. Now, I've been meaning to ask just some of the basic questions that anyone would ask, like, ooh, so what's it like playing on TV? Because you've been on TV before, and what was it like playing this year compared to the very first time? Because I know if I was playing on TV, I mean, I don't care how well you adjust to that kind of pressure, I think I would probably be fine. It's gotta fuck with you a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation because... Under those lights, it's like really hot. and
Something you don't think about.
And you don't think about that till you're under there. Those lights are really hot, and they're also very bright. So I actually, on day 3, we were on a feature table, but I don't think they had the cameras running like they were supposed to be, but then they decided not to like air the footage. So we were down to 2 tables, and we were on like a side feature table, and I saw Foxen wearing these like blue light blockers or red light blockers, and I was like, wow, that's sharp. And he's just in all these events where he's on TV a lot, so he's just thinking ahead. So I actually immediately Amazoned myself some, but they didn't get there in time for the next day. So I played the final table in the Thunderdome, and ironically the lights in there are not as bright as the side tables, but they're hot. Like, I was burning up, and I was wearing a hoodie for some of it for a friend of mine's clothing company, and I had to take it off at one of the breaks just because I was burning up. But yeah, that part, like, you're thinking about. You also, like, you're thinking about, you don't want to, like, feel like an idiot. You don't want to do something stupid. But, once you settle in, or at least once I settle in, none of that really matters. I'm kind of used to the private cash game environment where it's very social, and it was weird because our final table was not that social. Like, I was trying to keep a little bit of talk going on, and usually PLO is very talkative, but our table was quite quiet, I thought, relative to what PLO generally is, and definitely compared to how I usually am at a table. I felt like I did not speak as much as I normally do, but part of that's my opponents were just quiet people.
Yeah, well, if you're the only one talking, sooner or later, you're just going to stop talking.
I made a few random jokes to the guy, the older Asian guy who finished third, who barely spoke English, and I was kind of trying to needle him a little bit, which I think I did get under his skin a little bit. I just assisted in Mike Wang collecting his punt, which still laddered me, which was nice.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it's cool to be on TV. Like, that everyone's watching. You're sending everyone the link. Yeah, and I was on there for day 3, day 4, and then I ended up getting onto the feature table in day 3 of the main event a few days later, as you alluded to, because Hellmuth was on there, and a high roller, Leon Sturm, was also on there. And, yeah, I mean, once you get in the flow, you just get used to it. That was a little more fun. I was able to be more social on that table. I was actually quite talkative. I'm not sure. I actually haven't watched that back yet. I mean, I've seen the hand, as people refer to it now, that went viral against Hellmuth. But, I was on there for about 2.5 hours, and I actually played a lot of fun hands on there. I even tried to bluff into a straight flush. And
yes, I saw that. I was like, oh, boy. It was a good spot. You just, he had a straight flush, so you lose.
Yeah. Sometimes you run into it, but I felt like I played really well on that feature table. I actually felt very, very confident about the way I played, and I had a lot of fun. I was talking and socializing, and yeah, you just get used to it. I don't really have a problem being on camera. It doesn't really affect me the way it might with some, or at least I'd like to think it doesn't. But of course, it always plays into your mind. You're on TV. I mean, my first ever main event, I busted on the bubble on TV to Daniel Negreanu, probably playing the stupidest hand I've ever played. That was on ESPN, and it was against the most famous player in the world, and on the bubble of the main event. It was my first main event, and I punted hard, and I felt like a fucking asshole. I felt terrible, and I do think that affected me. The fact that it was against him and it was on TV is the only reason that it happened the way it did. I truly believe...
You psyched yourself out, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that hand ever happens if it's not on TV and/or it's not against Daniel Negreanu.
It looked like Mike Zulker on TV. It sounded like him. That wasn't you in that hand. And that's what can happen if you're playing on TV. I've never done it, but if I was doing it, whether it's tournament or if I was playing a live stream that I knew about, I could see myself being a little apprehensive at first. But then, sooner or later, something's going to click. I got a job to do, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to live and die with whatever decision I make. I'm just going to do what I got to do. And some people, I can see this happening to myself. I've never tried, but I can see myself, getting inspired or rising to the occasion type of thing. It might make me play even better.
Yeah, I think that kind of happened this year, both on the PLO table. I made a lot of mistakes, I thought, from a PLO perspective, but I thought I played the tournament pretty well in terms of protecting my stack and laddering and things like that. And I really, really felt good about how I played on day 3 of the main event against Hellmuth on that table. And I'm not just talking about the one hand against Hellmuth. I'm talking about the full 2.5 hours. I mean, I definitely put on a pretty good clinic of play. And I don't say that lightly because I'm definitely someone who's very hard on myself.
Oh, I know. We've been friends a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really feel good about how I played on there, and I don't even know how much of that got aired, because I think once Hellmuth busted, they kind of stopped showing our table as much.
Yeah, he's the draw. We know that.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I actually you mentioned it, on day 5 of the main, a couple days later, I also got put on to the feature table, and it was funny, because the thumbnail, I had Ike Haxton and Stephen Chidwick again, who I happen to just play with a lot this summer randomly in the big events I played, which I didn't play that many big events, but he was just always on my table, and that's not really good news when you have to play against the second all-time winningest player, or third, whatever he is, and he's just very good. And Ike is probably the other top 3, and I was the third thumbnail on there. They put out a thumbnail, and it was those 2 guys in my face, and, I don't know if that was just they need a third guy, or it's well, this guy's been on camera lately, and it was kind of cool to see. Like a lot of people pointed that out, and then Brad Owen did a couple of vlogs recently where he gave me a shout out. I was getting messages from people like, "Hey, you're in the Brad Owen vlog," and Brad's a friend of mine, but like I don't watch all his vlogs, so I didn't even know. And it's kind of cool that I got a little notoriety. I don't personally care that much about it, but it's hard not to feel good when it happens.
It's fun.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. You've been working your ass off your whole life, and you got to do something that tons of people can only dream of doing, and that is doing anything that made Phil Hellmuth unhappy after a hand. In this case, you knocked him out of the event, and here's just another like sort of groupie question. It's like, oh my God, what's it like playing with Phil Hellmuth? Like, were you starstruck by him at all? Is there any sort of aura about him that tells you, even from decades ago, that you could see why this guy had so much success?
I'm definitely not starstruck by Phil. I've played with Phil a few times. Now, I'm actually like, when I'm playing with Phil, I've played with him I think 4 or 5 times lifetime. And, it's funny.
So you think he remembers you, probably?
I don't know if he does, because he's blown up on me before. And it's funny that he did not do that. Everyone expected him to do it this hand, and he really didn't. He gave me one of those, "Nice hand, buddy." And he gave me a little chirp before the cards got dealt.
I've been meaning to ask about that, and tell me if this was it, because I don't even know if this was it. You're all in after a while. You got the queens. He's got the ace-king, classic flip, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing to fucking talk about. Just run the cards out. But I hope that this is the chirp, where he said to you, like, "You'll never have jacks there." Yeah. And that was it. Yeah, it's you can't just run the cards out. You gotta, like, you gotta save face. You gotta protect your ass a little more, letting him know that you would have never had him crushed in that spot. You would either be crushed or be in the situation you're in now, which is slightly ahead.
Well, this started a few hands prior, actually, because I arrived at the table, and I think Jared Blesnick was doing the coverage. Again, I have not watched back all of the coverage, but of course, like, I got sent clips and stuff, and Blesnick, who's a pretty famous poker player, who I've met a couple times, I don't know if Blesnick even remembers meeting me, played with him a handful of times or whatnot, but he was doing commentary, and he was giving me a lot of praise early on, before the Hellmuth.
Yes, he was. Didn't he take that huge beat in like a 5-bet pot or something?
He took a disgusting beat.
Yeah, aces against nines.
First 9, in like an unheard of way. I mean,
yeah, it was ridiculous.
Blez is great. I love Blesnick. I don't know him very well. I've met him a few times. Again, you meet so many people, and the more famous you are, again, I don't know if Hellmuth remembers me, because he meets everyone, and he's kind of a prima donna, and like, who am I? You know what I mean?
Right.
He probably remembers my face. Well, now he does.
But would act like he doesn't know you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, so I don't know if he had remembered playing with me before, like specific hands, but, Blesnick was giving me some praise, and that always feels good, obviously. But what I was alluding to is there was a hand Hellmuth limped, and I think I ended up checking. It was like 4-way limp pot, and I checked queen 10 in the big or something, and it goes like check around on the flop, and I turn a 10 on like 10-6-6 something, and I have top pair, and I check call bet from Hellmuth, and then I think I bowed up on the river, and he just gives up, and he has king jack, and he says something like, "I let you get there, but," he's like, "we play differently," because he limped, it's like, oh, because you limped your hand. Now, that particular hand, if he raised pre-flop, I would have defended the big blind with queen 10, and he loses more, to be fair to him, but, most of the time, well, quite frankly, if he bets the flop, he just wins. So, actually,
yes,
that's not true.
Yes, he does.
So what I would say is, Hellmuth was giving me little chirps. Like, I do think that Hellmuth gets a bit insecure and intimidated when players are good. So Leon Sturm is a high roller. He was the other player in the hand, in the Hellmuth hand. I opened, he flats, I think, pocket 8s, if I recall, showed on coverage. He's really good. It's because after the stream, we continued to play that exact same table the rest of day 3. And he made my life hell. Like, he was 2 to my left all day, and I would have ran my table over and bagged a pile on day 3 if it wasn't for Leon. Leon is a very, very, very good player who plays the high rollers, and I don't necessarily think everyone who plays high rollers is very, very good. I think I'm better than a lot of those guys, honestly. I just don't choose to play high roller tournaments. I play mid to high stake cash games and whatever. He's very, very good. Much better than I am, and just one of the most elite players I've ever played with. And he apparently was already under Hellmuth's skin just for being him, before I got there. So
just by existing.
Yeah, and I think when I arrived, I do think I carry a bit of a table presence with myself. Like, I am very
No, you do.
confident in what I do, but I'm also just a little bit talkative and whatnot, and I do believe that Hellmuth recognizes things like that, and I think he gets a little bit... I mean, the main event is his, like... That's his Disneyland, right? He gets to play with all these loose, passive fish. That's where he's made all his money over the years. And look, he's probably the best to ever do that in those fields. Lifetime body of work. I mean, sure, he's got the volume because of how long he's played, but he really is good at beating these, like, passive bad players. But he levels himself against, you know, mediocre to good players that are not fearful of him, you know? And I think there was a little bit of an insecurity thing with me, just the way he was chirping. That being said, like, the hand kind of plays itself. I mean, I open Leon flats, he jams, I think, like 30 bigs. I do tank because it's Hellmuth. I mean, this is a pretty standard get-in. I mean, I am going to be left with 13 big blinds, and we're still not even in the money yet. We're still a couple hours away from bagging. I think we're 2 levels.
It's annoying to have to go with this hand, but...
Yeah, I mean, and he's not wrong.
You have to.
Like, he did give me the spiel of, like, well, I guess you were just hoping I had ace-king, but I will say Hellmuth actually broadcasted his hand to me. I mean, he made plenty of comments. Like, look, I've been in the game 20 years. I know Phil's been in the game 40 years or whatever it is, but I'm a live pro at heart, and I do pick up on live reads, and the reason I tanked so long is because I knew he would broadcast what he had to me, and he did. And he told me he had ace-king without having to tell me he had ace-king. Now, I didn't really think I would be running into jacks. I thought it was going to be ace-king or kings, like specifically, or the other 2 queens. I don't think he ever has aces, just with the timing. I do think he would do that with kings. But yeah, I obviously, after he spoke for a little bit, I was very sure he had ace-king, and of course I have to put it in with the dead money. Yeah, and then the run-out's just made for TV, right? Like, I don't know that 2 of his cards are dead when he binks the 4-outer on the turn. I
Right.
don't know one of my queens
Yeah,
is dead.
you didn't know that. It's
Beautiful queen
makes it
cards.
even more satisfying once you do find that out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and of course, like, TikTok and YouTube labeled it as a 1-outer, and Hellmuth gets 1-outed. I mean, even on the broadcast, I think Brent Hanks is like, that's a 1-outer, and...
It was a 1-outer. There was only one fucking queen left.
It is, and it is funnier that way anyway. And yeah, to Phil's credit, he took it pretty well. He
did.
A nice hand, buddy. I fully expected a blow-up. I was already prepared with some things to say if he blew up on me, but once he didn't, I had to respectfully just keep that to myself because I'm not trying to be an asshole to anyone.
Yeah, I was disappointed he didn't blow up. I mean, it's sort of like a compliment to you that he couldn't blow up on you. You got it in with the best hand, and you won. There's nothing to say. But you said he blew up on you at another time.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So years ago, we're in like a 1K. I think it was like the closer event, and I think he mentioned he was already in for 3 or 4 buy-ins, and there's a hand where someone opens, Phil flats the button, I'm in the small blind with pocket aces, I 3-bet, only Phil calls, it comes 9 high, I check, and he like 2x pot jams, and I snap call, and he has king 10. He just has like 2 overs with like a backdoor straight draw, he might add a backdoor flush draw, and I bust him. And he, like, stands up, his chair flies down. Like, I don't know if he meant to knock his chair over or if it was just because he stood up so fast and he's a big guy. He starts berating me, and I'm like, Phil, you double flatted with king high and put all your money in with king high, and I have pocket aces. What would you like me to do? And he basically was just like, yeah, well, I mean, how do you just wake up with aces? You just got to the table and da-da-da. It's just like, you know, but he was like cussing and storming. And it's funny because, you know, that was just a random one.
How do you get aces? I get them the same way everybody gets them. You're dealt in and you get both of your cards and they're an ace.
Yeah,
Next question.
You didn't have to call pre-flop twice with king 10.
I mean, look, plenty of his blow-ups in terms of what he's blowing up about is like, it's understandable that he would have these feelings. Is it appropriate for him to verbalize them in the way he does? No, but we all can relate to how he's feeling.
Sure, that's what feels entertaining though, because like you asked earlier, do I get starstruck? I actually get excited if I play with Phil, or even if I watch a Phil clip. If a clip comes on, obviously if it's on social media, you know it's something like interesting. I kind of like seeing those because I know it's going to be a Hellmuth blow-up or something, and those are funny to me. Like,
oh, they're hilarious.
I mean, watching him behave like a child is funny. So when I play with him, I'm just always interested to see, like, how he responds to people. He's like, I'm going to get you now. Like, you know, he really is like a 10-year-old. He's like, this means war, and it's just like...
I mean, how does he not just... That is a total... One of the worst, most spastic punts I've ever fucking heard. He 2x shoves King 10 with next to nothing. Right. I mean, the hands he's getting you to fold, he doesn't have to go anywhere close to that size. So, like, what is he doing? He's just free-rolling himself in case you are trapping him, and he's yelling at you? It's like, God... I mean, he's just so, you know what, I guess he just gets so overwhelmed and so frazzled that he's so tilted with his own play, with the results, with everything, that he just can't handle it in the moment. He can't channel those emotions, so he just exacts them at the person who... You're not even responsible for him giving him those emotions. He did all of it to himself, but you're the guy who gets the chips. Yeah. So you're the closest to anyone he can blame.
Exactly. I mean, it is funny he'll do that. I mean... It's funny I don't see him blame dealers as often, ironically. You would think a guy like him would be a big dealer blamer. I don't see that very much. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but I guess I more see him do that to the players.
He's made comments before. For the most part, he leaves the dealer alone, or he might make, like, an indirect comment. He'll say, like, oh, you found...
Never deals me anything.
So, like, oh, you found a jack for the live one or something. You know the hand I'm talking about. And there was another time from, like, 10 or 15 years ago where he loses a big pot in a tournament, and he says to the dealer, he's like, mighty fine, buddy, mighty fine. And the dealer, who had just sat down, he's like, I just sat down. He didn't even deal that hand.
I just sat down, bro. That was the guy before. And Hellmuth just looks at him like, well, fuck me. I mean, like, that is actually a funny one. I do remember that.
Yeah, he cannot take losing. I mean, I hate it too, but I think it's just so important to act professional, and it's not like I've been professional in every moment where I've been frustrated, but I've never done anything like him, and
that's what makes him so funny. I mean,
no, it's hilarious.
This guy's 60, and he's the all-time leading bracelet winner, and I mean, of course, no one believes Hellmuth is like the best no-limit tournament player in the world anymore, but there was a point where he probably was. There was a point for a good 10-year period where he probably was the best no-limit tournament player in the world at that time. And a guy like that still behaves the way he does. I mean, in a way, it's kind of refreshing to see the raw emotion. Now, I know Phil builds it up for the cameras, too. Like,
100%.
He definitely likes to build into the persona. You know, what was funny about Hellmuth is I saw him, like, 6 other times after that hand over the summer, like, walking in the hallways, or we were at tables next to each other in the 5K, the second-to-last event. I actually stone-bubbled that event, too, in a brutal fashion, ironically. It was my 3rd stone bubble of the summer. The one I told you about kicked the summer off. I had 2 more. So it was like a great summer, but I actually had some pretty sick moments. But anyway, Hellmuth was at the side table, and he was getting into it with Nicky Palma, who's like a pretty famous Twitter poker player now. Nick used to be someone who I think had a bad reputation for scamming people and kind of had redemption, and now he's like a hard worker, and he wears his emotions on his sleeves as well, and he's like kind of this comeback story, and a lot of people like him, a lot of people don't, but like, they got warned multiple times for penalties. I mean, it was funny, and Hellmuth was over there, and I saw Hellmuth on break, and he kept looking at me every time I walked by him after that, like he recognized me, or he wanted to say something, but, like, didn't, know what to say. Like, it was almost like he wanted to be like, you're the one that ruined my main event, Because, I mean, everyone saw that hand. I mean, it went viral. Like, it really did go viral. I mean, I probably got 100 messages about that hand after it happened.
Yeah, even with you just putting the money in with the best hand, I'm still shocked that he didn't do anything, especially after taking what you guys thought was a 2-outer. I mean, he's about to double up. He's, in his mind, is like preparing to double up. You're preparing to be crippled. Yeah. Everybody's prepared for any of this because how often does lightning strike? Well, often enough. And it's just surprising, out of all the times that he kept calm, it was this one. I
think he was a bit in shock. I think it was like,
it's shocking for sure.
And then I can't believe I'm out. Like, I really think there was a little bit of shock. Like, he looked a little bit back at the table, almost like an amateur does when they bust their first big event off a bad beat. But, I mean, it was fun because, it's funny, going into the river, I thought I had 2 outs. I'm obviously, a 20-1 dog, but it felt more like I was a 5-1 dog. Like, I didn't think I was going to get there, but I had less of a bad feeling than I was in shape-wise. Like, I would have, taken 6-1 that I was going to get there. I don't know, it was weird. Like, if you watch my face, like, when the king comes, I'm not happy. But, of course, like, I try to keep it together. And that's, again, something, like, I think some of that's playing in the private game scene. Like, I can't express my annoyance as often as I'd like to, even though I do sometimes. But, like, yeah, I just felt like I might get there. I was like, oh, this isn't over. Like, I'm not, like, I wasn't just, like, resigned to my fate as much as I should be, if that makes sense. Like, again,
of course, yeah.
I didn't think I was going to get there. But I wouldn't have, like, thought I was a 20-1 dog.
Yeah, it's just
That was more.
you can't even really describe these feelings, especially the times if say you're all in with like a coin flip. You know, let's say it's like overpair versus like pair and a flush draw. And let's say you brick the turn card, and you got all these outs for the river, but you know you're not getting there.
Yeah.
You just know you're not getting there, and it's just a deuce on the river.
Yeah, there's just times you feel it. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm going to get there when I'm, like, a 4-1 dog. Like, I get it in with, like, 9s against, like, aces, and I'm just like, I'm going to sit down. Like, I think I got this.
And then, right, and there have been times where I've been all in, and it's a huge pot, and maybe they only have 2 outs. I'm like, he's not fucking winning. I was like, I got this, and then I hold. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I was a huge percentage favorite to hold anyway.
You just feel so much more confident.
I didn't feel any stress at all, and who knows if it's random, if it has anything to do with anything. I mean, it's really not worth reading into, but yeah, it is just funny sometimes how, like, you're in such bad shape, but it doesn't feel like you're in that bad shape.
Right.
And then you hit something. In fact, that actually happened to me yesterday. I was in a 3-bet pot. I have aces. A little hand history here. A reg makes it 20. I have a lot of history with this guy, although we haven't played for a while. I 3-bet to 60 with aces. He calls. It comes queen 6-5, 2 spades. He check calls 90 into a 120. Turn is another queen. That's not good. And then he bets into me 125, and I felt like I'm going to end up folding this hand on the river, but all right, I'm going to call now. And I was like, I just think that ace is coming, though. I call ace on the river, boom, got lightning, and then he bets 400, I guess, into 550, and he's only got about 800 or 900 left. And, you know, I've been having more fun with these all-in situations the last year, I guess, whether I'm bluffing or going for value. Like, I do a little countdown in my head. I'm like, all right, we're pushing the button in 10, 9. Like, everybody's staring and waiting for the drop, and I'm just having a little game in my head, just having fun with this moment where I'm getting ready to stick it in. So it's more fun when you have it, though, when you have top full. So I shove it in there, and he's tanking for a while, and he's saying things like, I don't know if I'm good enough to fold this, and just making all the saving face comments that you're hoping to hear when you have a full house.
Yeah, he wants to make it sound good for when he calls with a queen and loses.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't want to let this hand go. We know that. And he's seen me bluff a lot. I've bluffed off to him. So he knows that I could be pulling a rabbit from somewhere. But granted, in this situation, and I'll be first to admit it, I don't have a bluff here. I wish I could, but I don't.
Right,
I just
can't
have it this time. I just have it here. And he can't make up his mind, and then he does something. I mean, I've been screaming my head off about this on the air the last couple of months. I'm on a streak I've never been on where these players don't know what to do. They guess. They're correct every time. They fold every time I have it. They call every time I don't. And then I almost felt better after what happened, because this is what he did. He says to the dealer, he says, okay, he says, look, I'm not calling. He says, I'm just going to drop a chip. So I don't know what the fuck shenanigan he's up to, but he takes a chip, and I didn't even really see what he did, but he just threw it up in the air. I saw it hit the felt. I wasn't really looking, and then it took me a few seconds to realize that he had folded. So
you lost the coin.
So yes, he said, obviously this was the call. So he did not know what to do, and this fucking hand result just summarized everything that's gone on these last couple months. It almost gave me some confirmation what's gone on the last couple months. It's like, this is just variance. Don't worry about it. You're not getting passed by all these fish. They're just closing their eyes, praying, and in this case, not even realizing it, making the correct decision. It's like, I beat him. I beat him so bad he didn't know what to do. I beat him so bad he couldn't even make a decision. He wanted a coin toss, essentially, to make the decision. And everybody's trying to be so cool now, copying what Doug Polk did last year in that $1 million situation, where which is completely different. He calculated a million different things and came up with the idea that he has to call 25% of the time. So he came up with a whole simulation that gave him a 1 in 4 chance of calling.
Right.
And it's as though this guy was maybe trying to copy that in some way, but
you see this in
bullshit.
The high stakes game. I mean, in the games I play, you do see people do this.
Oh, it's a bunch of crap. At least yesterday it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the evolution. I mean, what sucks is, 2-3 years ago, this guy just calls, right? This is where it's like the game is getting tougher. Like, the fact that he would even leave it up to a coin flip to fold his hand is where it's tougher now.
He said he had a boat. He said he had 5s. I believe him.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, that's even worse. It's even more brutal.
I think that, and I was thinking, against this guy, could I have value shoved King Queen? I mean, I'd be tempted just because this guy is not unwilling to call me, and he calls a lot of 3-bets out of position with hands that he shouldn't. I mean, this guy can play, but the last couple of years, I don't know if he just doesn't care as much. He's just getting a lot spewier than I've seen him be before.
He played bigger, now he's playing.
No, this is.
Even one of your pods talk about a guy.
No, not this guy. I've never talked about. Not this guy. I've never mentioned.
Say it on air.
No, yeah, I mean, I generally don't use names, and I've never even done a hand reference to this guy, or at least not for a while. So, yeah, I mean, he should fold 100% of the time because I don't have a bluff there.
But that's not why he folded. He just folded because he's like, I feel like I'm beat. It wasn't like, because if he really feels like you never have a bluff, then it comes down to would you overvalue a queen? And that's probably going to go through his thought process. So, and realistically, it's probably like king queen only that you would even consider.
Yeah. And only king queen, and I have 8 combos of that.
Talk your way into just calling because you just think, can he call with worse at this point? And now that you've seen him fold 5s, then no. But
yeah, I mean, if it's queen jack, right?
When you get there,
queen jack, queen 10.
And you're like, okay, I'm like calling on the turn, probably knowing I'm bad and probably folding river, and then you get there and it's like, how am I like not getting the all-in call?
Yeah, it's just I was really sick about that, but it made me feel better about what's gone on before this. Even though they have nothing to do with each other, it just felt like the universe was speaking to me that like, this is what you're losing to. I mean, obviously I won the pot, but like, it felt like I lost. I lost out on this $800 or $900 call, and it's because he couldn't make up his mind, and he tosses a fucking coin, and it comes up on the side that favors him. So, okay, nice fold.
It's just a ton of variance, and I mean, there isn't really a whole lot you can do. I mean, when you're going through these periods, it feels like people just make every correct decision against you. It feels like that in tournaments sometimes. It feels like that in cash. I mean, I play in a private game where it's kind of like insulting if I don't get paid off. Like in a spot like that, in a private game, like you don't show someone that you had 5s, like because like you might lose your seat. Or you play together so often, but like if they're folding to you, that's almost like you don't have it in you to bluff. And like I can go off in these games, and like that's why I get a seat. So if someone folds a hand like that to me, I'm like livid. You know what I mean? It's like if someone folds a cooler to me in the private scene, I'm pissed off because it's like all the bluffs and the action that I give has earned these calls.
Right.
But in the public scene, it's like, people are nitty and sometimes scared and just sometimes like, whatever.
And he was losing that day. I mean, he was making comments about how this is the first pot I've won over $100 and things like that. And, people are, when you get stuck, people...
They're more prone to call it off than they might not have been. I mean, that's definitely the case with most people. They're more likely to put money in a spot and play their B or C game than they would have at the beginning of the session or the beginning of the month. So
much more willing to get it in a marginal situation,
for sure,
without a doubt. And it's, of course, unlikely you even come across a player that would ever contemplate folding that hand. I mean, most of them, they're going to him and ha, but they were never folding. They're just going to make you show it to them. And they're not surprised when you do, but they would rather just call off the $800 or $900 than do what he said after, which is say that it's like, I can't believe I just folded that. I mean, most people just can't wrap their head around the idea of folding a small full house, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say is I'm not very impressed with the Poker News public reporting, because you said you cashed in all these other... Were they World Series tournaments or just other tournaments around town?
It was a mix. I'm not sure how many World Series events I cashed in officially. I think I had 11 total cashes on the summer. I mean... Last year I had 17 and only like 14 of them got reported. I know I cashed in a couple of Venetians, a couple of wins, and Aria.
That's so weird that because they take all that information and they
I think it's on Hendon.
collect it very carefully.
Poker News.
Right. I didn't literally mean Poker News. I meant just the news that Poker reports. But yeah, Hendon Mob showed you had 4 World Series cashes this last summer.
Some other venues, and then I don't think they report the online ones.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, not that it's a big deal. I was more.
No, I know. And Poker News reported in that knockout hand against Michael Wang that your Ace King 10-5 were all mixed suits, that you did not have any flush draws, but you're saying you did.
Yeah, I had a suit. In fact, I'm pretty sure we turned the nut. I technically turned the nut flush draw with the King Eye suit, if I recall. Because it played a role in whether I was going to limp re-raise. I actually was planning to limp re-raise if my 10 was the suit, but I had 1 suit.
All right, well, we'll get over that. I'll get over it. I just wanted to point it out.
Yeah.
That I'm not impressed with all the news that the World of Poker reports, but
yeah, they don't get paid a lot, and there's not as much incentive. I think they're getting a little better and better because I think there's so many people that are kind of into poker now, and a lot of the poker news people or reporters can turn it into a little bit of a vlogging thing. Some of them are becoming vloggers, so it's a good pathway for them to gain a following, so they probably want to do a better job, but it's not exactly a job that's, luxurious, and unfortunately there's a lot going on, so sometimes you get the hands wrong, can't see everything close up, so it is what it is.
All right. Well, Mike, it was great to have you back in the studio today. Thanks again for coming in. It was an interesting point you made about how the edges are much smaller in PLO on the all-ins, but that the players are really, really bad, so that it might be more worth it just to play it anyway. Hold'em, you can get your 80-20 situation, but you may only get that once a week. In PLO, you could run 60-40 all day.
Yeah, they're just less studied. I think there's less content for PLO. There is training content, but I just think in general that players are less studied in PLO. And when it comes to the tournament stuff, I think, the variance is high either way, but I feel like there's a lot more separation from the elite to the next tier, whereas in No Limit, it's like everyone's pretty good in these No Limit tournaments now, especially at a 10K level.
So the average player at PLO is just much worse, and that can make up for the fact that the variance is going to be a lot higher.
Yeah, I mean, if they get it all in at 40% and win once, if I lost that very first hand, I got it in like 60%, I'm just out. I literally spent $10,000 for one hand, and
just another guy who lost.
Yeah, you might not even want me on the pod.
Well, thank God you won then. Otherwise, I don't know what I would do with myself today. But all right.
Thanks for having me.
You bet, Mike. Anytime. This is Dead Money with Dan Arfin, Mike Zulker, our first ever repeat guest. And it's Labor Day weekend, so I'm going to actually put myself to work this time. I'm sure I'll have some hand histories. When I don't have stories of people getting out of line and acting ridiculous, I just go through some of the hands I want to scream my head off about, because I've said it many times here. This is my therapy. I need to do this. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you next time.